Facebook hit me up. And I remember we were talking and Facebook was like, let's do some hate speech stuff in the EU. And I was like, that sounds fabulous.
Yeah.
But because, the ancestor Harriet Tubman is hilarious, I get to Facebook and I distinctly remember that the week that I was negotiating my Facebook offer, this was March 2018, Zuckerberg was at Congress testifying.
Oh, yes.
Data and privacy. So I joined Facebook. And for folks who don't know, when you join a lot of large companies, you could walk in and say, I was hired to be a chef, but if we got mopping to do, you about to mop.
Yeah.
So I walked in and I was like, I'm hired to do this. And the legal team was like, yeah, that's cute. You about to get onto this privacy. And so I spent almost 2 years at Facebook really digging deep. I did hate speech stuff because I really fought for that. I was like, I can do hate speech. Allow me to go to Europe and do hate speech, right? And so I did that stuff. But this underlying belly of Facebook for me was, one, how to build relationships with law enforcement around the world, because law enforcement continues to ask social media companies for information about their users, and social media companies tend to usually say no, but we have to build out that process. Also, we have to build relationships with law enforcement. We don't want law enforcement to think that we're anti-them, but we are anti-messing up the rights of our users, right? So it's a very fine line. But then two, privacy. And how is privacy used and not used, and how can it be used for violence, and how can it be used for good? And so having that experience, which is what led me to Twitter. So this is what March 2nd of 2022 was my first, 2020 was my first day at Twitter. And I went to Twitter to lead a lot of cross-functional privacy initiatives that came from legal that had to be transformed throughout the company. So things like GDPR, things like LGPD, which are these terms which, Cliff Note version.
Yeah.
A certain company comes in and says, we don't like what you're doing with our data. We don't like how you're talking about privacy. You have to change these things on your platform, or you can't have your company in our country. So GDPR hit in April 2018 when I was at Facebook, and that came from the EU, specifically from Ireland. LGPD came in 2020. I really felt like the Brazilian government took the Irish one and just kind of like changed a couple things, added a couple sprinkles, and like did their thing. We have an India one coming out. Every country's having one. And so when I joined Twitter, that was the path that I was on, was they were like, hey, you can come in and you can be the person in legal that when these laws come, you get to build these cross-functional teams across the company to do what the law said. And a lot of that stuff, product changes, or maybe it's like establishing new policies for our users, whether it's as simple as making a banner at the bottom of Twitter, or like literally changing the process flow for how a user is introduced to Twitter. We had to follow these laws, and I got to strategically lead these teams to do that. And I did that until it was dope. Yeah.
That sounds so fun.